Hey guys, Coach Justin here. Today we're going to be talking about exercise selection. The most important thing for exercise selection is prioritizing for the phase that we are in. And now as powerlifters or strength athletes, the two most common phases we are going to be in are going to be strength phases or hypertrophy phases. So let's first take a look at what we would do for a strength phase. What do we want to prioritize then in terms of exercise selection? Say if I'm a powerlifter, I need to be really good at the squat, bench, and the deadlift. And so we're just going to take a look at lower body today. And so for lower body, how do I prioritize getting good at the squat or the deadlift? Well, how about day one? The first exercise I will do is a competition squat. And then day two, I'm going to start off with the deadlift. That way I'm starting off with the competition lifts that I'm wanting to compete in or do well in, right? These are the movements that I want to get really strong in, squat and the deadlift. So those are going to be first on my two separate lower body days, right? And then throughout the day, we can pick on what do we want to do after a squat. Well, what sort of a weakness we have. Maybe we really struggle out of the hole, or we struggle with maintaining tightness in the hole. So let's do pause squats after competition squats, right? So generally we want to do our main movement first, and this movement doesn't always have to be a variation. It can be a variation. It just kind of depends on what we're really trying to work on. Once again, so are we in a hyper-specific block? Are we leading up to a competition? So if we're leading up to a powerlifting competition, we should probably just do the competition squat, right? But if we're like in off season, say we just got done with the powerlifting meet, that's something where we could just start off with pause squats, and we can totally forget about doing competition squats, right? But let's keep the main movement of squats. Let's say we'll go to pause squats. Then we'll want to do some sort of lower body movement for our posterior chain, because we don't want to just do quad work. So, but we'll pick something a bit lighter because we are deadlifting later this week, right? So let's just do something like dumbbell Romanian deadlifts. So we can keep it a little bit lighter. We don't want to deadlift because we did just squat, right? So we did squats. We want to keep our hip hinge variation lighter. So we'll do dumbbell Romanian deadlifts, especially because we want to limit axial loading just a little bit because we have that heavier deadlift session later on in the week, right? And then so on and so forth. You can add a few more exercises, focus on more weak points you have, or even get into a little bit of hypertrophy stuff at the end. Say let's do like Bulgarian split squats, and then finally maybe we can do something like hip thrusts, and then that would finish out our day one lower body day, right? Then we can go to day two and same sort of thing. Let's say we have deadlifts. Then let's say honestly, maybe instead of a technical weakness, you just feel like you lack sort of the mass on your lower body, on your hamstrings, your glutes. So we could do something like just a barbell Romanian deadlift, right? And so really hammering on that hip hinge pattern, really hammering our hammies and our glutes. And then once again, so on and so forth. Maybe we can do like leg press, fill in the rest, just like day one. Now that's what we would kind of do for a strength phase, right? Is focus on the movements that we want to get really good at. What about for a hypertrophy phase, right? So let's take day one. What sort of considerations do we need for a hypertrophy phase in day one? Let's have this be a little bit more of a squat or quad focused day, right? Something you may do is actually start off with leg extensions and then get into your squats. And the reason for this is because in a leg extension, you're really focusing on, well, extending your leg all the way through the range of motion of the quads, right? Versus the squat, where in the squat, we don't actually really work in that fully extended range of motion like our leg extensions. So in the leg extension, you will fully extend your quad. In the squat, you do fully extend your quad, but there's not much weight on it at the top, right? So if we're squatting up, the hardest part of the squat is going to be at the bottom of a squat, right? So the squat really doesn't challenge our quad through its entire range of motion. But a leg extension will challenge our quad through the entire range of motion. So this is something where we could put in leg extensions first because it really challenges the shortened or fully extended position of the quad, whereas the squat doesn't. So by putting in leg extensions first, we're really not losing out much on the squat. Squats aren't going to be that much harder because we do them after leg extensions, whereas leg extensions could get a lot harder after we do them if we do them after squats, right? So generally for our quads, we're going to struggle with shortening the quad once it's tired. So if we get it super tired during squats, we might not get everything out of leg extensions that we really could get in a hypertrophy phase because our quads are just a little bit tired from the squats, so we can't fully extend, right? So anyways, you get the point. Start off with something like leg extensions first and then go to squats. And then also for a hypertrophy phase, we have to think that like we really don't need to be hyper specific in the movements that we do, right? We're probably fine squatting once a week. We probably don't have to squat twice a week. We don't have to be super frequent with our lifts because the main goal is hypertrophy. So maybe instead of squats, maybe you grow your legs better through leg press. You feel better contraction during the leg press, right? So then we can go from leg extensions into the leg press. Because once again, if the goal is hypertrophy, we aren't necessarily worried about really hammering in frequency on the big lifts. So we could do leg extensions, then leg press, and then maybe get into things like maybe glute ham raises, and then maybe pick another quad exercise, something like lunges, something maybe a single leg Bulgarian split squats or lunges, and then we could do like lying hamstring curls, right? So really just focusing on our quads and our hamstrings here. So that's, yeah, that kind of covers hypertrophy. Is once again, the goal is hypertrophy. We really don't need to worry about doing specific movements and getting really strong at those movements. At least like powerlifting style, right? We don't need to worry about doing the squat and getting ready for competition lifts. We still want to pick movements and get really good at them, right? We want to get really strong at leg press if we're trying to get big legs. The final thing to take into account is going to be looking at our whole week, right? So if we have squats on first day, deadlifts on our second day, let's say these are heavy squats, right? And you're doing sets of, you know, maybe sets of 6, sets of 5, sets of 3, heavy sets like that, right? And these squats just mess you up, right? You're never going to recover, or let's say you don't recover well after a heavy squat day. And so even when we get to this deadlift day, we know that this deadlift day is going to be pretty challenging if we don't take care on our first day, right? So if our squats are super heavy and we're starting off with super heavy squats, maybe instead of going into something like a pause squat or some other competition squat variation, we could just cancel that out and do something like a leg press, right? So we can pick in different movements that take out some of the axial loading, right? So if we do squats and we always get messed up with squats, then we'll squat, and then instead of doing any more squats, we'll just do something like machine work for our legs, or even like single work for our legs, where we really aren't loading ourselves very heavy. That way, once we get to that second leg day, we can actually put work into those deadlifts. An alternative thing though is like, let's say you do squats and let's say you never really get too fatigued from squats. Then you could even do something where you do a higher frequency on your lower body lifts. So we can do squat first, maybe pause squats, and then maybe even some like a lighter deadlift variation, maybe pause deadlifts or speed deadlifts, right? So we work on just moving deadlifts and moving them well and really focusing on more technique work. And then we could also go on our second day and have our main movement be regular deadlifts and put in the work there, right? Deadlifts, and once again, maybe we go into a barbell Romanian deadlift, and then maybe we go into like a SSB squat, something like that. That would be for someone who recovers really well and doesn't get super beat up by specific movements, right? But that's the main thing. So first thing focus on when picking exercise selection is prioritize for the phase that you're in, right? So if we're doing a strength phase, if you're getting ready for a competition or a competition's on the horizon, you know, in like 3 months time, really should probably be starting off with the lift that we're going to compete with, right? So a squat or a deadlift in like a powerlifting competition. If you're in a hypertrophy phase, the main thing you should be prioritizing is getting a good contraction in your muscles, right? So then we may not start off with a squat, we may start with the leg extension and do squats later. And then finally, we really need to take the whole week into account and how we manage fatigue, right? So we don't want to do exercise selection where we're doing squats, then deadlifts, then pause squats, then barbell Romanian deadlifts, because that's going to really beat us up, right? That's going to be very hard to recover from unless we're doing like very low intensities. And if we're doing very low intensities, then kind of why are we doing those things, right? Why would we be doing all of those at very low intensities? You really would. That kind of ends out this video. Let me know if you guys like this video. Let me know if you guys want to see this on an upper body day. Upper body days are a little bit easier because you don't have to really manage fatigue as much as you do with lower body days. But let me know if that's something you'd be interested in. And yeah, if you have questions, comments, leave them. Send me a message, send us a message, and we'll get back to you. Thanks. Bye.